20-year career. Opening drive of the game, and there's Gronk. The undefendable play. Hall of Famer to Hall of Famer. Bucks missed the extra point. They're up 6-0. Matthew Stafford. Right ankle. Pain, would not return. You see, he hops off. He was 2 for 3, 17 yards, but that is it. Next Tampa drive. Bucks just outside the red zone. Brady. Man, what a Hall of Fame career. Evans is starting to build. 10 catches, 181. Most passing touchdowns in a season, Buccaneer history. That's right. Tom already has it. Passing Jameis Winston's record from last year. So it's 13-0. Chase Daniel's in the game now, and we're not expecting the snap, and he's sacked. Yeah, heads up. Whoa. Gives the undercarriage a bit of a how's your father. Detroit, 186 total yards in the game. Second fewest all season. Now it's 20-0. Here comes Brady. Pitch and catch to Chris Godwin, who had 5 catches for 84 yards. Third touchdown of the half for Brady. Tampa's up 27-0. Antonio Brown, what did he do? 4 catches, only 35 yards, but that's a touchdown. According to Elias, Brady's the only player in the last 40 seasons with 340 passing yards and 4 touchdowns before the half. 34-0 at the half. Give Tom some rest. Bring in Blaine Gabbert. Rob Gronkowski could not have been more open. Only caught 2 passes, both for touchdowns. Easy day for Tom indoors in Michigan. 22 of 27. Buccaneers clinch a playoff spot.
I thought he showed a lot of toughness. Obviously not converting on third down. I think his mobility perhaps played into that a little bit. This is a great football team, a great defensive team, as good as we've seen all year. They throw every look at you that you can prepare for. I thought Derek did a great job, and I thought he did enough to win tonight.
Jerry? John, when they switched quarterbacks to Fitzpatrick, how did that change the look for your defense? You guys are defensively been having your way for most of the game.
Well, I think we just missed a couple tackles. The running back got out of trouble, made a 60-yard touchdown after we scored and missed the extra point. And Fitzpatrick gives his guys chances that most quarterbacks don't take. He's willing to throw the ball down the field in tight windows. Once again, we didn't register a turnover on defense. The pass rush wasn't good enough, and he got us. He got us.
Hey, John, was Josh Jacobs, he hurt during the game? How did that affect the play calling?
Yeah, a little bit. He had an IV. He wasn't feeling real good coming in here tonight. They're a hard team to run the ball against. Like I said, defensively in the last several weeks of the season, they've been one of the very best teams I've seen on tape.
Coach, is there anything Darren Waller does that's amazing anymore, or is it just expected all the time?
No, he's a great player, and he plays such a major role in so many different positions. It's one of the best players I've ever seen play football.
Looks like that's it. Thanks, Coach.
All right, guys.
All right, so with the win, the Dolphins hanging on to the number 7 seed, while the Raiders are officially eliminated from playoff contention. As for the rest of the AFC, the Chiefs and Bills have clinched their divisions, while the Steelers, who already have clinched a playoff spot, can clinch the division title with a win over the Colts. But we get back to this one with Tim right now. And John Gruden saying, listen, he does not regret making that call, agrees with you, wanted to have as little time as possible for the Dolphins. And he said, you know what, just thought that would put them in the best position possible, calls it an inexcusable penalty. And you look at this defense for the Raiders, you go back to week 11. Since then, they've been giving up 36 points per game. That's the worst in the NFL. What has changed for them? What's been so bad about that defense right now?
Well, listen, they've changed play callers. It was so bad. Look, they just have, like a lot of teams, have dealt with people being in and out of the lineup. That's been a struggle. And listen, they just kind of have made mistakes in inopportune times. And, tonight is probably a great example of it. And look, it's with a different play caller, on that side of the ball. A face mask in that situation, as John Gruden characterized it, is inexcusable. But the bust in coverage is inexcusable as well. Matt Collins, there's no reason, should have been that open on the sideline in that part of the game. So, look, I think it was a combination of those things. And I do think it was telling to hear John Gruden talk about how Derek Carr played well enough to win. It clearly was a comment in relation to how he felt about his defense's inability to close it out.
The narrative has changed so much around this team. They started 6-3. We're thinking, okay, they finally got a team that we're going to see in the playoffs, see what John Gruden can do with his guys. And then now they've lost 5 of their last 6. What changed for them throughout this year?
Yeah, I just think they didn't have the consistency. I mean, there were parts, even tonight, there were times where you thought, look, this is really impressive. Some of the things they were doing defensively and coming up with stops. Their ability to run the ball with Josh, generally has been, pretty good. It's, been uneven at times, but for the most part, pretty good. Even when Mariota had to play, he played well. So I just think that there were times where, when you play good teams in the National Football League, the margin for error is so small. And the game-altering plays, you don't know when they're going to happen. And if you don't play consistently enough to make it when they do, things like tonight happen to your football team, and then they start to demoralize your football team. And so I think that, if you just look at how this team is kind of, had high hopes early in the earlier part of the season, and then kind of how they've fallen apart, look, I think that's a big part of it. And the season is long. It's a marathon. You have to sustain the consistency, and they just weren't able to do that. And look, I think in many respects, you have to look at Miami and give them credit for sustaining and kind of making the plays when they need to make the plays.
Yeah, and you talk about making those plays. Gruden complimentary Ryan Fitzpatrick, saying he got us. Simply, he got us. And just talk about Ryan Fitzpatrick being put in these situations over and over again. We've seen it so many times now, and being able to deliver.
I mean, it's like a microwave, like instant offense. Put him in, and after at 30 whatever years old, and to come in after standing on the sideline for over a half and play the way that he played, it's really remarkable. John Gruden said something funny. He says he takes chances that most quarterbacks don't take. Well, that's what Miami needed. They needed him to take chances. He did, and he just does an excellent job of hanging in there, being willing to take the hit as he's throwing, being willing to try to fit the ball into a tight window and give his guys opportunities to make a play on the football. And when you're down the way they were down, and when you needed to take those chances, he kind of was the perfect guy for that scenario. And I think as great of a job as it was by Ryan Fitzpatrick, I think it was equally as courageous by Brian Flores to make that move in that situation, basically saying, look, hey, go save our season, because that's what Ryan Fitzpatrick did.
So quickly, what do you do going forward now?
Listen, you start Tua, and I think they will. And I would just say this. It stuck out to me the way that Tua responded when he came out. He didn't. His helmet was still on. He was still engaged in the game. And same thing for Fitz. When Fitz would come off after a scoring drive, he would go over and they would talk it through. And I think the benefit that these guys have is they know their roles. They know they're standing on the team. And they've also kind of been through a situation like this earlier in the season where, was it Tua's thumb? Did he just not play well? Well, Fitz comes into the game, kind of gave them a little bit of a spark, missed a little bit of time, but then came back and was the starter. I would expect for Tua to be the starter next week against the Bills in what is a must-win game. And I would expect Ryan Fitzpatrick to be ready to go if they call on him. I think that that's how it'll play out. And I think it's probably the right move, both short-term and long-term.
Interesting dynamic at quarterback over there. The Dolphins now 10-5, and again hanging on to the 7th seed in the AFC. Tim will be back next hour to break down the other 2 games.